It's 6:01, I guess. I'll call the public meeting to order and should advise the public of the following. This public meeting is required under the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for lands known as 4 Morrison Drive and 358 Elm Street. The proposal is to allow a clinic, business office, and residential uses on the subject lands. Before we begin, members of the public are advised that only specific stakeholders, including the applicant, the minister, public bodies, or a specified person as defined by the Planning Act and/or the registered owner of any land to which the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment would apply, may appeal Council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Further, if a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission to the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas before the amendments are passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Those wanting to be notified of Council's decision on the application should email customerservice@stthomas.ca indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide the same information. Does any member of the council have a disclosure of interest concerning the matters on the agenda? Seeing none. What method Mr. Clerk, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Thanks, Your Worship. Notice was provided in the St. Thomas Times Journal on Friday, May 15th, 2026, and in accordance with council policies, notice was mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property.
Thank you. I will now introduce the Manager of Planning Services, Michelle, who will provide background information on the proposal and present the draft bylaws. Michelle?
Thank you, Your Worship. We're here tonight for the public meeting for the draft official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for 358 Elm Street and 4 Morrison Drive. The subject lands are located on the northeast corner of Elm Street and Morrison Drive. They were a former office for a construction company and they have parking in behind. So as you can see here, this is the building that was occupied by the construction company offices, which has always has a residential designation and zone that I'll speak about later. And then the 14 parking spaces, which are currently located behind the building on 4 Morrison Drive. So just an overview of the surrounding area. To the north, there are single detached residential uses and also St. Anne's Church. To the east, there is single detached residential uses and a place of worship. To the south, there is a low-rise residential apartment building. To the west, there are a variety of forms of residential uses. And also, as we go further west, there are commercial uses located towards the corner of Elm and First, both with sort of the Shoppers Drug Mart Plaza with the Goodwill and the clinics, and also the Domino's Pizza. So this is the proposed site plan. So the proposal is to add clinic and business office and allow single detached residential and accessory uses on the subject lands. Using they've shown in the site plan the existing building and the 14 parking spaces. So I should note that, I guess a little bit about the property. They're currently 2 separate properties, though under the same ownership. So they're actually also under a deeming bylaw application. Because the property, often, if properties are adjacent, they'll merge, but because the property at 4 Morrison Drive is part of a plan of subdivision, there's a deeming bylaw application that's being run concurrently, and council will need to approve the deeming bylaw to remove that lot at 4 Morrison Drive from the plan of subdivision, even though it's always functioned, for several years with 358 Elm as parking. So the most recent use, as I've noted, is the construction offices. And then I spoke about the requested amendments and that the owner intends to use the lands for a wellness center or a wellness clinic. And I also mentioned about the deeming bylaw application. I will note that we have only received one comment so far, and that's from the adjacent neighbor at 374 Elm Street, and it was very much in favor of the proposed clinic use. So this is the official plan designation of the subject lands. The current designation permits a range of residential and institutional uses. It's under the residential designation. So the previous construction office was permitted based on a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment several years ago. And so the proposed official plan amendment, because clinics and business offices typically wouldn't be allowed under the residential designation, is to add a site-specific exemption to add clinic and business office as permitted uses. Again, I would note, I would note that this isn't uncommon in our residential designation, particularly along Elm Street and some of the more major arterials, to occasionally have these site-specific permissions to allow for commercial uses. They're just evaluated in terms of compatibility and fit through official plan amendments. The current zoning for the site, the property at 358 Elm is in the 3rd residential special provision zone, permitting a range of residential and institutional uses, as in the R3 zone, with a special permission to permit an office for a construction business, subject to certain site-specific requirements for landscaping, parking, fencing, and signage. And the property at 4 Morrison Drive is also in a 3rd residential special provision zone, but which permits a range of residential and institutional uses. So the proposed 3rd residential special provision zone through zoning bylaw amendment requests the additional permitted uses of a clinic, or the wellness clinic, business office, single detached dwelling, and accessory uses. Staff are still in discussions with the applicant about the sort of working through the details of the bylaw, but staff are proposing continuing to permit the full range of uses that are permitted in the R3. So the R3 doesn't just allow single detached dwellings, it also allows semis, duplexes, triplexes, apartment dwellings, up to 4 units. And so just staff are, through discussions with the applicant, looking at maintaining the spirit and intent of the residential designation along a major arterial. So proposing that, there's that full range of residential uses continue to be permitted in the event the property no longer is used as a commercial use. Staff are also considering proposing that the permitted uses be limited to the existing building, similar to what's often done in these sorts of contexts in the residential designation and zone where there's site-specific amendments, and also that the existing parking be provided, because one of the things that's often looked at is making sure that the parking is appropriate and not leading to more on-street parking in the residential areas. So here's the draft official plan amendment. Essentially, it would be adding on the map, showing heavy lines where the amendment would be located, again, maintaining that residential designation. And it would be to allow for a clinic and business office, because those residential designations are already permitted by the official plan. You can just see here where the property is highlighted. And then the draft zoning bylaw amendment, again, we're still working through finalizing some of the details of the bylaw that'll be brought to council with the applicant, but it would apply a special zone to zone the lands to an R3 special provision as shown on special zoning map 21, allowing for additional permitted uses of the clinic, business office, and accessory uses. This would allow the R3 uses to continue to be permitted as they currently are. Similarly, it would require the location of additional permitted uses. The additional permitted uses would only be permitted within the building existing on the site of the date of the passing of this bylaw. But again, we're speaking with the applicants and understand that there may be an interest in allowing for some expansions, minor expansions to allow for like an accessible entrance or something of that like very minor. So it's just making sure that what's being in here meets their needs to allow for potentially an accessible entrance. And then also looking to secure in the bylaw minimum parking for additional permitted uses, being the 14 parking spaces for the uses permitted must be provided at the rear of the building existing on the date of the passage of the bylaw. Because one of the big things is we want to make sure the parking is sort of as minimally, has as minimal impact on the surrounding residential area as possible. Being to the rear is quite helpful to that effect. And then also making sure that there's sufficient parking. So staff are looking to propose a provision like that, similar to that in the final bylaw that'll go to council for consideration. Thank you. Oh, and then here is the site-specific zoning map showing the R3 special provision zone applying to both properties. And also in the time the bylaw is consolidated, showing it on the zoning map. I would just say, just in terms of the deeming bylaw application timing and the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment timing. So the applicant, they applied for the official plan amendment, the zoning bylaw amendment, and the deeming bylaw amendment. And, they're reluctant, they've expressed a reluctance for the deeming bylaw to proceed ahead of council making a decision on the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for fear of the fact that should council choose to refuse them, they wouldn't be able to sell the property separately. So what will be coming forward to council in the future with the follow-up report would be a decision on the deeming bylaw would be looked to be sort of be made at that same meeting. That council would also be, should council provide favorable direction regarding the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. And then once the deeming bylaw is registered on title, then the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment would come for council's final decision. So, any questions?
Thank you. Well, just before we go, just 10 seconds. Okay, so before we go into that, questions from the council. Mr. Clerk, have you received any written submissions on the proposed changes?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, one written submission was received from Carissa Calvert, noting their support in favor of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Wookie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is in my direct neighborhood, so I go past this multiple times every day, and I'm pleased to see that it's a similar usage as what was in the previous iteration. No deliveries in the middle of the night, nothing that's going to disrupt the neighborhood. I appreciate that you're trying to maintain the parking spaces so that there's not an influx of on-street parking, because there are a number of institutions in that area that there will be parking on street anyway for the various uses. And I'll just say that I'm very pleased that this worked out, because when I saw that this was for sale, and the construction company moved, I was a little bit nervous, because we know how things work in terms of permissions and appeals and everything. So I'm very pleased that it's what I would call a compatible use for the neighborhood, and that we're also protected somewhat from somebody saying later on, should they buy this property after it's been deemed, that they might want to add a large, 3-story apartment where that parking lot is, that we're maintaining parking, their parking requirement, so that they can't just within the zoning that we allow off and build something that's not proportional to the neighborhood. So those are my comments, not really questions, but I'm really pleased to see that this was what was proposed for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any further questions? I do have a question for Michelle. Sorry, can you expand on the word clinic? What do you mean clinic? Clinic comes to me, medical clinic. That's the first thing I think of, but clinic could mean a lot of things. Are you referring just to one specific type of clinic or different ones before I open it up to the public?
Yes, so through your worship, it would be consistent with the clinic definition in our zoning bylaw. So that could allow for a medical clinic, it could allow for a dental clinic, the wellness clinic, anything within the term clinic as defined in the zoning bylaw. They haven't proposed any changes to the definition of clinic. I can put the exact definition of clinic in the follow-up report.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll open the meeting to questions. Sorry, who had a question?
Oh, sorry, through your worship. I will also point out that I'd note that the applicant is online. Should there be any questions for Robert Brown from Oakview Land Use Planning, and also the owners are here too.
Thank you. So, okay, so now we're going to move on to opening the meeting to questions from the public. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have called into the meeting, use the telephone, please dial 9. The questions will be taken in sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's record. If there's anybody in the balcony wishes to speak, there's a microphone down at the far end. I think there was, yes, at the far end. And give your name and address, and you're entitled to speak. If anybody in the balcony wants to speak, we'll start there first. Yes, you want, yes? So just your name and address, please.
Hi, this is Matt Robinson and Kate Robinson. We're the owners of 358 and 4 Morrison. I'll let Kate speak about her business, and then I'll speak a little bit about how we plan to use the site.
Hello, everyone. I am a psychotherapist. I've been working in St. Thomas for probably the last 16 or 17 years. Went into private practice a number of years ago, and I specialize in working with trauma. There's a lot of clinics in larger centers that have a more integrated approach where people rent and we work as a collective team, and it provides pretty good care and really supports referrals. So the clinic would be run in the day, it would be private practice, and I'm hoping to get some other professionals on board that would complement my service. So I like minimal traffic, daytime hours, people with scheduled appointments.
And we intend to use the site the way it's built now. Some of the small renovations, we don't have any planned, but just a small exterior, like possibly an accessible entrance, maybe an overhang. So if somebody was at the side door, they wouldn't have to wait out in the rain. Just minor details. The building, the way it is basically perfect for office space. It's how it's been run by the previous builder for quite a few years now. We really intend probably to have a lesser footprint than what they did during the work week. But again, we're looking to bring in other practitioners. We are going to rent space to them. We're not going to create a by hour payment plan. So they'll have their own business. They'll be able to own and operate out of this building. And with that, I think we can attract some high-end, high-level, good practitioners for this city, and they should be able to stay for long-term and help the residents out within the city. And as St. Thomas residents, we're happy to work and live in St. Thomas, so we're happy that we were able to have this opportunity and that the previous builder gave us the opportunity to have it.
I think another note is that I've already been approached by a number of people, not from this community, right, that have just looking to rent in St. Thomas. And the rental spaces for healthcare are actually quite limited right now. And so, you know, there's this piece about like having the space with parking that I think a lot of people are really looking forward to or wanting in our community. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else in the balcony that wishes to speak? Okay, thank you. I don't see any hands raised on my screen. John Hanley, you have nothing on yours either? No hands raised there? Did you want to comment, Michelle, on what the comments were made up there, or I'll just move on to Laurie Baldwin, Councillor Sands?
So through your worship, no, I have no further comments to add, but appreciate the owners providing an overview of their business.
Thank you. Councillor Sands?
Thank you. I
Baldwin
appreciate
Sands, sorry.
Fine, thank you. I appreciate those comments as well, but through you, if I could, to Michelle, have the individuals been discussing at any time community improvement grants that are available, especially with creating accessibility to the building itself?
So through your worship, no, not at this time. The addition of accessible entrances is something that that only has recently been raised in the conversation, but I think is something that we certainly will want to be able to account for in the zoning bylaw. So that's something that's I'll work with them to see what community improvement program grants are available. As a next step, should council approve the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, we could direct them towards the committee.
Thank you. So once again, I don't see anybody else speaking up there, no hands. So I'll return to council. Does council have any further questions or concerns? Okay, so in the opinion of the chair, the public has been given a fair opportunity to express their views regarding the proposal. It should be stated, everyone has been given a fair opportunity to express their views. If there are no further questions that I can see, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw for the proposed amendments should email customerservice@stthomas.ca. Provide your name, address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680 extension 0 and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded.